So I was looking back through a little bit of the history, and you know, as Tom Cruise said in the movie Cocktail, nothing ends well or it wouldn't end. And that's obviously Travis Schlenk and the Atlanta Hawks. And whatever the reasons are, what my gut tells me is that there was a power play between Travis Schlenk wanting to go in the luxury tax because he understands that to build a competitive roster year over year, you're going to go in the luxury tax versus Tony Wrestler, who I think mandated that look, we're not going to go in the luxury tax because it doesn't make sense. We're a fledgling kind of team. So there is a balancing act, and I understand that from the Travis Schlenk side of things that you're not going to be as competitive if you can't get in the luxury tax and sign your guys and add more pieces to it. But I also understand Tony Wrestler that you're the owner. It doesn't make sense to go years into the luxury tax and it be punitive when it starts costing you a lot of money, not not so bad your first year, but that second and third year really gets you into some trouble. And the Hawks payroll is going to go up. Even if they just keep everybody, their payroll's going up significantly. DeAndre Hunter, 9.9 to 21 million. John Collins is owed a few million more. Trae Young is owed a few million more. If Bogey were to opt in, he'd be 18 million. You got a lot of money that's still committed. And, you're going to try to look at adding a piece or two or things like that. But with that, how good was the Travis Schlenk era? How much did he change the franchise? Okay, let's start with the Trae Young, trade. They draft Luka, they trade for Trae Young. Okay, was that the best trade in hindsight? I still think for this organization, because here's the thing: we were told that we were going to build it in the way that Golden State was built and in different things like that. Okay, so the Luka for Trae, did we get the better player? I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's as egregious as what some people do. And the state of the franchise isn't that drastically different from what we've accomplished and what Dallas has accomplished. I think probably at the end of the day, Luka will be a better player than Trae Young. But how much does that translate into his franchise's success? Look, he's got an owner that's going to spend whatever it's going to take, and they just picked up Kyrie Irving. They're going to spend with Mark Cuban whatever it's got to be. Luxury tax be damned and all that kind of stuff. So that's the first big move. The draft picks from Travis Schlenk, getting DeAndre Hunter, getting Cam Reddish, Onyeka Okongwu, Jalen Johnson. Okay, you look at some of the second round picks, they've been busts. Skylar Mays, Sharif Cooper, those guys have done nothing. And when you look at, honestly, DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, Onyeka Okongwu, who was the sixth pick of the draft, Okongwu is a serviceable guy, but they haven't got anybody that's a running mate for Trae Young. The John Collins pick is still maybe where it was picked, still the best pick that Travis Schlenk made. But again, he's regressed. And I'm not blaming all of this on Travis Schlenk. I mean, coaching and different things and philosophy and things like that. But Travis Schlenk did bring in Lloyd Pierce and he did bring in Nate McMillan. Let me put it like this. While I understand that there are some good things that Travis Schlenk did, okay, is it maybe that he had more swings and misses than he had doubles and triples and home runs and things? Yes. Are we a better franchise than when we were gutting the roster and in rebuild mode at the end of the Mike Budenholzer era? Yes. We're not a 23-win team anymore, right? And we had the miraculous run, and I think everybody got caught up in the emotion of that run. But when you look back, it's been very hit or miss on the draft picks for Travis Schlenk. His free agent signings have been pretty good. they built that roster with Bogey and Gallinari, and they had some pretty good things that they had done. Kevin Huerter was another good draft pick. But now we've moved on from Kevin Huerter, and once he tried to get paid, and we want to not be in the luxury tax. And then again, the coaching. Lloyd Pierce was always going to be the stopgap. He was never going to be here when they got good. I'm not saying he's Mark Jackson, but he was never going to be here when they got good. But you almost had to kind of promote Nate McMillan. I look at, honestly, we didn't draft the way that the Golden State Warriors drafted. Steph, Clay, Draymond Green, that big home run, there was a massive home run that Travis Schlenk was part of, and he was a big influence in getting Draymond Green, drafting him, I think, at the 35th pick of the draft in the second round. That was a huge home run. We haven't done enough of that. Collins is regressing. DeAndre Hunter's not taking any steps forward. Jalen Johnson is, what he is. And Onyeka Okongwu is a serviceable piece. You would like to think that the 6th pick of the draft would be better, but in NBA terms, Onyeka Okongwu is a serviceable piece. He's not better than Clint Capella as a starter, and he's not, and unless they trade Capella and move on from him, he won't get his chance to start. But how much really better is the franchise? And again, I'm not blaming Travis for everything, but certainly, the early part of Travis's run and that Eastern Conference Finals run, we've never built off of that. We've never built through the draft off of it. We never built through free agency off of it. And again, we haven't built through our coaching staff. He's hired the 2 guys that, have been our coach. And again, Lloyd, okay, you were going to move on from Lloyd Pierce at some point. But we had Nate McMillan. Maybe he wasn't the guy. Maybe he's not turning out to be the guy right now. I just think that the era of Travis Schlenk, and we'll certainly see what Kyle Korver and Landry Fields, and I think that they are going to be more in line with the owner's vision of what this franchise is going to look like moving forward. But, if in a year from now, we're talking about Nate McMillan has stepped down as coach, John Collins is traded, DeAndre Hunter's not getting better, this organization is going to look a lot differently, and the Travis Schlenk era will sort of just be a blip on the radar when all is said and done. And the whole thing, and it will always go back to, whether this is fair or unfair, it's always going to go back to, did we get Trae and Luka right? And no matter, unless you drafted so well and you hired the great coaches and everything like that, everything's going to circle back to, was it Trae or Luka? Which one was the right pick? And we know now that Travis Schlenk was a little bit more in the Luka camp. We've heard, stories that have come out that he was a little bit more in the Luka camp, but he's always going to be defined by that. The problem is we haven't built around enough of that. We haven't gotten enough of our draft picks right that are star level players. We haven't done enough in free agency that they are blips on the radar, and we certainly don't have the stability at our head coach. So it's a fair job that Travis Schlenk did, but to say that he did a great job with the organization is probably a little bit of revisionist history. All right, besides making Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery your first listen every day, make sure you make Locked On Sports Today your second listen. Biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available Spotify, YouTube, Apple, wherever you get all your favorite podcasts from. Check us out there.